We've basically just finished Persona 5 Strikers. We're coming in from this game having played through Persona 5, the regular version of Persona 5. We played through that blind last year, a couple of years ago, on stream together. We played it on hard mode, loved it. Okay, I didn't really enjoy Persona at first, but that's not really by the by. We ended up playing through Persona 5. It became one of my favorite games of all time. It's not perfect, as with a lot of games. However, I did enjoy it a lot, and it then pushed me on to play other games. So, for example, we went on to play Persona 4G afterwards a couple of months later, and I enjoyed that a lot as well. So now we're coming into Persona 5 Strikers. I didn't know anything about the game. All I knew is that it was a sequel, a canon sequel to the 5th game. It kind of assumes that Royal hasn't existed. Although I know a little bit about Royal, I haven't played it, but again, it doesn't really matter at this point because this game kind of assumes that, again, Royal doesn't exist. You don't see like Katsumi or any of that. Joker doesn't have his grappling hook and all the other jazz that you see in those kind of games. But anyways, Strikers, did I enjoy this game? I think that as a Persona 5 fan, yes, I think this game is pretty good. I've saw other people talking about the game after they finished playing it, and they said something that I'm going to kind of reiterate here, which is if you're a Persona 5 fan and you love Persona 5, you love all the characters, you love the story, and you've played through it a bunch, maybe you bought Royal and you enjoyed that as well. If you've enjoyed the story, then I think you should consider picking up this game because it is, again, it continues on with the characters. You get to spend more time with some of the later characters like Haru and things like that, and it's just a good development of your friends and their journey. Obviously, the gameplay is completely different, and that's where I would maybe recommend to other people who are not hardcore Persona 5 fans to maybe hesitate in picking this game up. Now, the combat is fun. It takes a little bit getting used to, and it is quite exciting. At first, it's overwhelming because there's a lot going on in your screen. You've got follow-up attacks. Your teammates want to attack. You've got your regular attacks. You've got your personas, all your different types of personas. The enemies have weaknesses, and you've got all of these different combos that you can do. It's mad. That's not even including things like your items and all these other kind of secret attacks that you can do and stuff like that. It's wild at first, and on the first day I was playing this and I was thinking, you kind of come in and you expect the P5 kind of, not maybe expect the Persona 5 gameplay, but when you come into it and you start the game, it is very much Persona 5, and you're like, holy shit, I like this, it gets you right into the setting, and you think, here we go, and then you go into your palaces, your jails in this game, and it's much, much different. Palaces, they're called jails, are more streamlined in this game, not as kind of long-winded as the palaces in P5, I found. They've kind of overcompensated, but they've compensated for the sake of the fact that your gameplay is a lot more fluid now, so you're kind of hopping in and out of battles very frequently. Obviously, there's a lot more mashing going on, and the sea of enemies that you're fighting against is pretty, it's just a bit wild. So the kind of smaller areas within the jails allows you to progress through the jails a little bit faster, which feels quite nice. However, I do feel like there is a bit of repetition when playing the game. A lot of the enemies you're going to fight consecutively when you go through the jails are the same enemies appearing at different times. The fights themselves, once you do the first couple of fights, that's basically you for the rest of the game. You're going to unlock new characters, you're going to unlock new moves, you're going to get new personas, but for the most part, you're doing the same stuff over and over again for the entirety of the game. Now, if you enjoy the combat, that's going to be great for you, but if you don't enjoy it at first, bit of a heads up and a bit of a warning there. I'll talk about some of the other stuff that I liked because that's the easiest thing to do, because otherwise I'm going to look like a hater, but I will give you guys my full opinion, what I liked and disliked in order, as I always do. So what did I like about this game? Just as before, it is a great kind of follow-up to the first one, so I don't need to talk about that too much. You do get to see a kind of expansion of like all your characters going on a new journey. The idea of the road trip is fantastic. I love the whole jumping around Japan, learning little bits about the Japanese culture. It's very obviously basic kind of information as you go from city to city, but it was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. I also enjoyed the cutscenes, just like Persona 5. You've got your beautiful animations threaded in amongst the journey, which was great. I liked that they had some kind of wow moments with new characters, Zenkichi and Sophia obviously appearing in the mix. I love both of these characters, and Sophia did my fucking head in most of the time. She was kind of cute and stuff, and she was a powerful ally. I used her in all of my battles just about. But yeah, we'll get into that later on. Zenkichi was pretty cool. I liked the fact that I couldn't guess whether he was a good guy or a bad guy for the first kind of quarter of the game. The story was pretty predictable for the most part. You kind of know what's kind of coming at various points, and there is a decent amount of length. Or sorry, what I should say is the story's kind of predictable, but it is kind of that it's that kind of calming Persona vibe. So again, if you like the 5th game, you'll like this one. It kind of follows a similar suit. There is a decent amount of gameplay here in the game, so if you buy this game for full price, it's going to keep you busy. I mean, I looked up the average time. We're very slow when we play through games. My playtime was 50 hours. If you decide to do all the extra side missions, requests, all the extra stuff, it might even take you a lot longer, depending on how much time you want to put into it. I was getting to the point where I was really happy for the game to end. We were powering through this quite fast, but yeah, it gets to the point where after you've sat listening to your teammates, although I really love the characters of Persona 5, I will admit I was starting to get a bit fatigued by the whole, especially towards the end of tonight. I'm not going to shut on the game because of this, but like towards the end of tonight, the preaching of, anime and friendship kind of gets a bit much. Normally, I am very sympathetic towards those kind of environments in these kind of games. I enjoy them, I go with the flow, and I have a lot of patience for them, but Persona 5 does have a lot of dialogue. Persona 5 Scramble, or Persona 5 Strikers, does have the same amount of dialogue. Towards the end, I was like, holy fuck, guys, right, say your goodbyes, thank God, can we get out of here? And it just keeps going and going and going. Again, if you like it, it's great. If you're a bit exhausted with it, just, again, be warned. But, yeah, they've streamlined the Persona system in this game. I saw a lot of people saying that there's a lot less Personas in Persona 5 Strikers than there were in Persona 5. Now, it kind of makes sense in a way, because the game, again, it's all about this kind of fast-paced, fluid action. It's not the slowed-down kind of turn-based tactical gameplay that you might be used to in the 5th game. So what they've done is they've taken the Velvet Room and they've streamlined the fusion of Personas. So they've taken out a lot of Personas, which at first you might be like, oh no, that sucks. But then you don't really notice it. At least in my opinion, I didn't really notice it when I was playing through. They allow you to fuse Personas via sums of cash if you've not got all the Personas, so there's a way to make new ones even if you haven't found the other ones, which is quite nice. So they kind of not overcompensate, but they compensate by allowing you to have little perks along the way to kind of make your experience quite smooth, which is decent. Same as before, you can run around all the shops, buy all the SB items, all the foods, so you get all that. If you enjoy the kind of exploration aspects of Persona 5, wasn't particularly a big deal for me, but again, it kind of mimics that in this game. Again, there's a lot of familiar nods and a lot of familiarity in general to this game that the P5 that came before it gives you. Again, I'm constantly referring and reflecting back to that because obviously this is, the follow-up to that game. So there's a lot of nods and that's good. A couple of things that I'd like to point out that were maybe a bit of some of the negatives. Okay, it didn't really hold this game back, but there was a couple of things that we need to talk about really quickly, and some people might be interested to know the kind of downsides. I will say the audio in this game is very strange, and it might get patched if you're watching this game months in the future and you're thinking about picking this game up if you're watching this video and you're thinking about picking the game up in the sale. At launch, the audio for this game is very, very bizarre. Like, it feels ill-tuned. You might not notice it if you're playing the game through a TV and you've got it loud, but if you're playing this through a headset, sometimes characters will talk and they are like half the volume of the person who talks directly after them, and then it goes back to that character, and it's like you almost can't hear them. In the console version, you don't have the ability to tweak the music and the voice levels and stuff like that, and it's really awkward. I don't know what was going on there. I don't know how the game got released with the audio so fucking shit. Again, it's only noticeable maybe 2 times out of 10, but it is there, and I'm like, wow, that character's definitely quiet, or this character's definitely way too loud, and it just seems a little bit off. Not a huge deal, it's not going to break the game for you, but it's something that I noticed, and normally you don't notice audio in these kind of games, it's at least at this level. I will say again that another negative that I kind of had was the dialogue of this franchise is very long-winded. So if you are, on the off chance, if you're thinking about getting this game blind, if you've not played the 5th game, you have to be aware that when the characters are sitting down to talk, if you let that run, you're going to be there for 15-20 minutes sometimes longer, and they do have a lot of intermittent discussions. If you are on board with the adventure and what's going on and you like talking to the characters and listening to the characters, it's great, but if not, it's a slugfest. It's very, very slow, and it doesn't try to get to the point very quickly. So be warned of that. I also felt like, again, the gameplay, although it was fun to try the new battle system, and there's something really exciting about proccing the weakness on the enemy and then doing an all-out attack in the middle of a sea of enemies. The gameplay can feel quite fluid, but it is quite repetitive. I guess you're just kind of doing the same stuff over and over again. I did like when another kind of flip point here. I did like when you were going into the dungeons and fighting against some of the monsters, and then they would add new elements for you to interact with in the environment. So you can jump on a car, jump up. Joker does his like backflip, he shoots the car, it explodes. When you first see some of those for the first time and you proc those over and over, that felt really good, and I'm glad that they kept adding in new ones as you went through the game. Towards the end you had like big electric laser turrets that you could jump on, and like literal thunder cubes that you could shoot and it would explode and provide elemental damage, and that was good. So I enjoyed kind of that aspect. I also quite liked shooting the guns in this game. I don't know why. It's so simplistic and basic, but it's pretty enjoyable, especially people like Anne or Zenkichi. Their gun abilities are just really, really satisfying, which is kind of hilarious. But obviously this game does not feature any of your kind of romance options. There is an ability at one point to go on a date, but it's stuck to rails and it doesn't really show much. We went on a date, ironically enough, we took Yusuke and Rigi on a date. I say ironically because when we were in Persona 5, we romanced pretty much every female that was available. And in this game, we took Rigi and Yusuke on the Ferris wheel, and it was they just complained the whole time. It felt really lackluster and kind of miserable, but they don't really have the Confidant building that you have and know from Persona, so you're not going to see any of your old familiar Confidants. They've completely kept those out of the game, so you're not going to see Takemi, Awai, anybody from the 5th game. They don't exist, and you don't actually build up points with your teammates in that regard. You do have some new cool systems like the Bond XP, which I quite liked. It's a pretty intriguing system, and it was a way to kind of get other forms of progression. And again, you can chart your points in the way that you want, depending on the combat and things like that. So shout outs to the Bond system. I thought it was pretty cool. I did not really enjoy doing there was something that, this is going to sound really annoying, and again, it's a very minuscule point, but I did not enjoy doing a lot of the requests for Sophia. Firstly, because when I was inside the logs of finding your side quests, these requests, you've got three slots that three columns you can swap between. So you've got your recent ones, your location-based ones, and then whatever was in the fucking middle. That whole menu to me was fucking dog shit. Now, eventually you do get around to understanding it, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to fucking figure it out, but there was so many times where, like, at first I was trying to understand, okay, so there's a request available, it's got a tick box, and then on top of that it's got a done symbol, but it's not got a tick in the box, and it just seemed a bit cluttered. I felt like they could have laid that out a little bit differently. I'm not exactly sure how they would have done it. Maybe just have like a line of lists, and if you have selected the quest, just have a selected box, and then to the right of it, just if the request has been done, have a tick in that box, and then a third column for if the quest is redoable, and just have something simple like that. The whole, I was going into dungeons at first, and this is mostly me being a dumbass, but there was times where I literally went into the dungeon to do a quest or a request, and I was running around looking for it, and I hadn't even accepted it. But the whole fucking, at first again, the whole tick in the box, picking up the request is so fucking obscure that sometimes you don't even realize. And then trying to find them within the menus after you equip them, it throws it to the bottom of the list, and then you have to scroll down and find it. It's not exactly that. It's not a game breaker, but I feel like it was a bit of a mess, and I didn't really enjoy being in there. As you're doing that the whole time, trying to find the request over and over again, Sophia's obviously going, "Are you checking the request? Would you like this one? Are you checking the request?" And she just doesn't stop. She does not stop. It's like there's an audio cue for every click, and I don't know if they could have written a bit of a programming code or some shit to make that happen once every 5 clicks or something, so it was a bit more, just a bit more bearable. Well, I go on to buy weapons from Sophia in the other aspect of her shop, and it's like, are you buying this one? Who are you buying it for? Would you like to sell this? Would you like to equip this now? Thank you so much. And it's like, mate, if you're equipping your fucking 9-man Persona roster, this shit gets unbearable. Again, it's up to you if you give a fuck about this kind of stuff, but we were getting a bit tilted by the end of it. I was like, Sophia, please. I almost didn't equip my fucking characters at time because I couldn't, like Sophia's shot was like the final boss. I just couldn't handle it. Anyways, memes aside, Persona 5 Scramble, all in all, to sum up this clusterfuck of a review, did I enjoy it? Yes. Is it long-winded? A little bit. You do get good value for money, so if you enjoy it, this is a great kind of throwback to Persona 5 with a whole new gameplay experience. They give you something different, they've tried something new, and I appreciate that, and I enjoy it, or I appreciate the fact that they've tried to do it. Did I enjoy it massively? I mean, it was good, but, do you need to sprint out and buy this? Will it be the best game of the year? No, I don't think so. But I would recommend it to you if you are a huge Persona 5 fan, and that's what ultimately it's going to come down to. If not, if you think you might be interested because you've saw some of the gameplay, or you like the Dynasty Warrior games made by the same people who kind of paired together with Atlus to make this, then by all means pick it up and give it a go. I don't think you'll be too disappointed. But yeah, just be warned. A lot of repetition, and for the most part, it gets a bit tiresome at times. But good game nonetheless, and I'm glad we played it. GG's.